Yeah, there's a bit of panic, but I think at the same time, people here know what's happened in Melbourne and sort of go, well, let's just get through this next 6 days and do the right thing. So yeah, a little bit of fear, probably a little bit of like annoyance, but at the same time acceptance.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are heading to Adelaide, which has just entered a 6-day lockdown to get on top of the Parafield cluster that hopefully is not bubbling too much away around the state. We are chatting to Adam Liston, the chef and owner of Shobosho and Shosho Izakaya. I remember Adam from when he lived in Melbourne. I'm glad you missed our lockdown over here, Adam, and I certainly hope that yours is swift and you can reopen very soon. But thank you so much for coming on Dirty Linen today.
No problem. It's all good.
How are things? Tell me what it's like to be in Adelaide right now and the owner of a restaurant.
I mean, obviously pretty swift. Like we were sitting 2 days ago in a kind of environment where both restaurants or outside of our restaurants, like the restaurants across the city were pumping. And then, quick outbreak to bit of panic to 1 day of restriction to now lockdown. So yeah, just kind of super fast, a little bit nervous and just in time for Christmas trade. So it's a little bit, unnerving, let's put it that way.
What are the practical things that you need to do? The lockdown begins at midnight. Did you close straight away, or are you doing your last service?
Well, ironically, a lot of people have cancelled, which is completely fair enough. Shobosho being in the city probably got hit the most. I mean, we were going to trade through tonight and try and use up what sort of stock we had left, but we went from that 1.4 or 1 to 4 square metre rule, which we had like kind of 50 people booked tonight, down to 2. So we've pulled that. They won't do service tonight. And Shosho's in the suburbs, which is in a pretty affluent area. So again, we had sort of 50 with that rule booked, and that's dropped down to like 15. So they'll do service tonight, but now it's really just a management of stock sort of thing. We'll just give away a lot of food to the staff.
Yeah, it was those full fridges that came to mind very quickly when I heard about this very fast shutdown. It must be so demoralising to have stock that you've, obviously committed funds to that you then can't sell. What kinds of things can you do about that apart from, I guess, offloading to staff?
Not much, because, I mean, both those restaurants are pretty reliant on fresh products. And, yeah, I mean, it's disheartening. I mean, from a like kind of financial perspective, but I think that the bigger fear is that both those restaurants, we don't qualify for any sort of JobKeeper stuff because the revenue since COVID had sort of gone away, seemed to go away from South Australia months ago. The revenue in both those restaurants didn't allow us to sort of qualify. So yeah, we're sort of in that situation at the moment for this 6-day apparent lockdown where the staff are not going to really get anything outside of what we can provide. So to give them food is probably the lowest of my problems at the moment, and I think that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good use of it.
Yeah.
When you heard about the cluster, I guess a few days ago now, did you pay a lot of attention to it? Did it unnerve you straight away? I mean, did you have any sense that things might get to this point?
Literally, Dani, it came from like we've sort of, not that we've been oblivious to it. I mean, we've all been watching with big hearts like what's been happening in Melbourne, and being someone that spent a lot of time there, I just thought that was an absolute tragedy. But we were, as South Australians, pretty proud of the way that we sort of had it under control. And then all of a sudden, there's 16, 17 cases, and we're like, okay, this is pretty weird. And then I guess probably yesterday morning, we're all sort of waiting for the Premier, being Stephen Marshall, to what we thought announce a bunch of different kind of new cases. And there was only 1, then there was 3, then there was 5. And then now all of a sudden there's a bit of a cluster, and it's, sort of operating in the vicinity. I mean, Adelaide's only a small place anyway, but the places that these people have been are literally going from one side to the other side of town without actually going through the city. So it makes sense that they shut it down. I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, obviously it's going to, if we tried to play it differently, we'd be in a situation where Christmas would be absolutely shit. But to close it down for 6 days is bad. But I think I agree with the decision because, as I've spoken to a few Melbourne restaurateurs and chefs today, that I mean, it's bad that it's hit at this time because this is where restaurants make their money. But if it's only 6 days, we should be able to bounce back pretty quickly. But yeah, it's obviously just happened so quick, and it's been hard to sort of process it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, goodness me, I really hope it is 6 days. And from the experience in Melbourne, it seems like hard, fast, and get it sorted, just crush it seems like a much better idea than a 112-day lockdown or whatever it was that we had.
Yeah.
I can imagine, speaking to people in other parts of Australia through this whole period, there was a sense that it had been dealt with. It was done. The coronavirus was this thing that had, it was happening in other places, and we did have to deal with it, back in March and April. But yeah, it was dealt with. I mean, did things in Adelaide feel really normal?
Well, they did. I mean, and I was a pessimist. I mean, I've got multiple business partners, and when we went through that lockdown that the whole country went through, and then reopened with these restrictions that for South Australia quickly eased. I was of the opinion, which I'd voiced quite heavily to my business partners, that I didn't think that people were going to come out, but I was proven wrong with that. I mean, I guess the one sort of benefit from a South Australian restaurateur perspective is that I was actually not only proven wrong, I was completely proven wrong. Like, the restaurants, being the ones that we're involved with, literally went through the roof. I mean, we were back to doing revenue that we were doing pre-COVID, and we all sort of analysed that and thought, well, I mean, South Australian people couldn't go to Melbourne, which is obviously probably the most popular state for our locals to visit, and then slowly we were able to go to new places. But yeah, the restaurants literally went back to we're pumping and we're back to normal, and it was almost like it wasn't there. And then we were obviously still watching what was going on in Melbourne in particular, and thinking, oh, I wonder if this is going to come, and then it never did. And then all of a sudden, wake up in the morning 2 days ago, and it's like, oh, we're on. So yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's hard to sort of cry wolf here and sort of say, oh, I feel sorry for us, and in particular because of what's happened over where you live. I mean, if it's only 6 days, it's only 6 days.
Yeah, sure, but we don't want to see it happen to anybody, and we know how destabilising it is, especially what a wrench it is when you think you're done with it to go back into lockdown. So, yeah, I'm sure I speak for everyone in Victoria, and it's the first time I've felt that I can, but let's give it a go. I'm sure I speak for everyone in Victoria to say we hope you get through it.
My biggest problem is the same one that we had in the previous lockdown, which involves not only South Australia but the rest of the country. I mean, like, Shobosho has 80% of its kitchen staff that are, workers from Korea, Japan, China, that have, like, legitimate visas, been in the country for X amount of time, and then those people were literally not qualifying for any government support and never got anything. And then now we're, if it's a 6 day thing, it's a 6 day thing. I mean, the restaurant can cover them to that degree, but if it does stretch to something bigger, I'm still waiting for these, like, government politicians to come in and go, hang on, like, what about these people that have literally somehow managed to survive? I mean, it's okay for me as a restaurant only for 6 days, but it's not okay for them.
Yeah, well, I know you were really vocal and active in around that. Right from the beginning of the shutdown, and saw that as a clear problem for sustaining the people that sustain your business through a shutdown. It's really interesting, like, one of the suspected transmission sites in Adelaide is a pizza bar, and it was because there was a guy that worked in hotel quarantine and worked there making pizzas. And I think it's that you could easily see in your situation, when you've got people who don't have a stable position in Australia. I don't know if this guy is I don't know what his visa status is, but you can just see when there's this environment of people who have insecure work, people who are outside the circle of care, that it's it's not only a problem of, how do they pay their rent, how do they feed themselves, it's a health problem for the whole community.
Yeah, 100%. I don't want to sound funny with this, but the first thing that comes into my head when I heard about that pizza bar, same with the hotel where it all started, is, I mean, how are those two businesses, once all of this goes away, ever going to survive when they're going to be labelled as, the coronavirus people? And it's not really their fault at all. And I just still question, why those testings and stuff wasn't done with people looking after people in quarantine. It makes no sense to me. It's stupid.
Yeah, it seems like there are lessons that need to be learned over and over again with this pandemic, which is really unfortunate and throws whole communities into turmoil. I don't know about that stigma, though, Adam. There's a cafe in Kilmore, the side of a transmission when we had a little bit of a city escape. I think it was in October, and they were so rock solid with their contact collection that they were easily able to contact everybody who'd been through that cafe. They were able to quarantine them, and they were able to contain the virus in that town just an hour outside of Melbourne. And to my mind, that cafe is actually like a COVID hero, because you can't really if the virus is out there and people are moving around, it's not the business's fault if somebody comes through. And I think the thing that's falls to businesses is to make sure that they're doing everything according to the rules in terms of being really proactive in collecting contacts and keeping their business as clean and as safe as they possibly can. So I hope it doesn't reflect badly on that business in the end.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's more of just a public perception. I mean, I haven't been to that pizza bar in the kind of danger zone, but I've definitely been there before, and the pizza's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I reckon they probably had more hits on their webpage today than ever before. I had a look at them, and it looks like a pretty kind of rough and ready place that actually would sling a good pizza. So yeah. I'll make a point of going there when I get to Adelaide, of course, after I've been to Shobosho. Yeah. So what actually were the rules before this in Adelaide, just in terms of the stuff I was talking about? Were there any density rules? Were you still required to collect contact details from customers? What actually were you required to do?
No, I mean, I was just recently in Sydney, and I was pretty surprised about how detailed, even going into a pub for a beer, signing in and it was everywhere. There was 6 or 7 places that we went to that required that sort of information. We haven't, as a state, been in that situation. The only restrictions that were really left with us prior to that was there was a little bit of the 1.2 square metre thing, but that was easily managed with the government sort of coming in and allowing kind of extra seating outside. And then the only other thing that was a bit of a detriment to both Shobosho and Shosho was sitting at a bar where there was food being prepared close by. So that took a little bit of capacity away from us. But to be honest, like I said before, both Shosho and Shobosho were amongst the other restaurants in a, not a group but a collective of different places. We're pumping, and it was, it didn't really seem to be a problem for us. So, like I said, we wouldn't have even known it was a thing here. So for it to just sort of jack up overnight was like, wow. And it's literally been 48 hours. So, yeah, it's pretty full on. It's like the Grinch has come. The Grinch for Christmas has come. I'm going to get a tattoo.
The Grinch is just out there. Yeah. So it was announced this afternoon we're talking on Wednesday. It was announced this afternoon that the lockdown started at midnight. It's a really hard lockdown. It's more full on than the Melbourne one because people aren't allowed to go outside even to exercise. And restaurants are not allowed to do takeaway, which we were always allowed to trade through with takeaway. People feared that it would be closed down to that degree, but that's really full on. That's definitely the harshest lockdown in Australia. I wonder what will happen. I'm wondering, what is it like in Adelaide right now? Have you seen people just rushing to the supermarket? I saw photos of empty toilet paper shelves, for God's sake, again yesterday in Adelaide. What's the vibe? Are people rushing around? Are people shell shocked? What's happening?
To be honest, I've only been in the sort of vicinity of both the restaurants, and there's a bit of kind of unease about that. And obviously the cancellations have kicked in, and then there's a lot of people that, I've had multiple phone calls from friends and family and a partner that sort of says, hey, what do you need for the next 6 days? And I've been told that there's a lot of people running in and out of like supermarkets and stuff. But, my vibe on that is that I feel that harsh lockdown is probably a good thing. And I was speaking to Sally from the Lee Street Wine Room earlier, and it actually makes it a little bit easier than doing the 1.4 thing, because you can actually legitimately kind of say to the staff, look, this is not our decision. This is a government decision. And if we go in hard now, we're probably hopefully likely to sort of nail this on the head. And as much as it's going to hurt, it might actually be a bit easier to do it now for 6 days and sort of go through sort of what you guys have gone through. So, yeah, there's a bit of panic, but I think at the same time, people here know what's happened in Melbourne and sort of go, well, let's just get through this next 6 days and do the right thing. So, yeah, a little bit of fear, probably a little bit of like annoyance, but at the same time, acceptance.
Have you got a couple of masks ready to go, Adam? Because now you're being told that you need to wear masks.
I don't actually. I didn't even thought about it. My kitchen guys wear masks all the time, and I just haven't been one of the lucky ones that's got one. They've all got these customised ones. I should have been on that train. I might just put a tea towel around my face and put some drawings on it. I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, I won't have to because I'm at home now, so I probably can't go anywhere.
Yeah, right. Well, I guess you're one person per household is allowed to go out once a day for supplies. So maybe one of the supplies you'll need is a mask, to use that tea towel and go out and get some masks. But I did wonder that because everyone in Melbourne's got 30 million masks now that just we've got, all of a sudden I had a spot in the house where people put their masks and, they get washed in the evening and, this is where the disposables are if you need one. And, the kids have got extra masks in their school bags. Like it's all a bit of a thing, So, yeah, you'll need to get on that train. I'm not sure if it will be made a law in South Australia as it has been here, but yeah, I'm kind of into the masks. I think it's going to ease off for us. Yeah,
I am too. No one can see if you're angry or you're happy.
No, I don't like that part of it, but I think what
I like it. It's good.
I think what I like is you can't really forget that there's a pandemic when people are wearing masks, and I think it's good to be mindful of that. If there's one thing I hope for Melbourne, out of your experience, that people here see that this isn't over and it can flare up so quickly, and it's definitely a good idea to stay as safe as possible while this pandemic is still in the ether.
I really wish that I was like some master, kind of cook that had spent all this time working on some crazy kind of vaccine that was involving natural, maybe you put a little bit of kiwi fruit and some coconut milk and you put some kaffir in this and you do that, and I came up with the solution to the problem. I was just daydreaming about that. I mean, it'd be rich if I did that, but no, my skill level is not that good.
It would be awesome if you could do that. What about if you could create a cocktail that was actually a vaccine? That would be just legendary.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, it'd be an Adelaide.
I'll be working on that for the next 6 days. I'll keep you updated with that over the next 6 days.
You do that. Adam, I'm really grateful of the opportunity to check in with you as you are embarking on this lockdown. Thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat to me. I wish you all the best. Stay safe. Everyone in Victoria will be keeping a close eye on your numbers, and we'll be hoping there are no more new cases and you are indeed able to open up in a week or so and Adelaide can get back to rocking it all the way through to Christmas and beyond. Thank you so much.
No problem. Good to speak with you, Dani.
This is Dirty Linen and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.